what you've been through. But look in the mirror, tap into your spirit, there's power within you. Like LinkedIn, I'm locked in, get the job done when I clock in. I weighed out my options, put the work in, that's action, no lacking, just stacking. Big dreams I'm attracting, no accidents, that's fate. Just go in and have a little faith. Faith without works is dead. I don't wanna die so soon. I got moves to make instead. I ain't scared, I'm prepared. Big ideas inside my head. I'm gon' make them manifest. And I'm dressed for success. I left, right, order my steps. Network, I ain't gotta do it by myself. Who you know, show me who you know. Better let them know we bout to blow. It's time to blow, go, go. Go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah. Go to work, go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah. I ain't tryna trade my time, yeah. Simply wanna show you what I'm worth, yeah. Daily I'ma stay on my grind, yeah. Have a little faith and go to work. Go to work. Okay, now go nuts.
Hey there, I'm Trevor Houston, the creator of the Who You Know Summit, and I'd like to welcome you to the Who You Know Job Networking Show.
On our program, we'd like to show you a job search like you've never seen.
Everything from getting noticed by employers, how to properly format your resume, and how to network effectively using LinkedIn to drive recruiters to your profile.
We even take suggestions from our amazing community.
So if you want to learn all things job search, go ahead and subscribe now.
Focus! It's all about the job search. So if you want to learn how to land that next success, you heard them. All you got to do is subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss out on a thing. Welcome to the Who You Know Job Networking Show, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. I'm super excited about another special edition because we've got the Media Blitz episode going on right now. We are simultaneously taking over the news feeds, the audio rooms, all the YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the platforms. It's pretty cool. We're doing some shotgun effect out here. And if you would like to learn how to pair your channels to this show, and actually have this show going live from your social channels, I want you to send me a DM. Just put the word pairing, and I'll send you the instructions on how you can actually do that. But real quick, I want to give some shout outs. We got a whole bunch of folks with us. We got Jason Hopper in the house. What up, Jason? We got Troy, Timothy Mitchell, Reggie Hansen, I see McKenda Waterman, Govert Van Sanderwijik. I don't know if I said that right. I probably messed it up. Levi LeBling. Let's see who we got in the audio room over here. We got Susan, Jim Ballard. Jim, you know you a baller. Jim Ballard is in the house. We got Dr. Donna. Good to see you. We appreciate you being here with us. And what I'd like for those that are watching us online, because we got the audio room going on and we also got the live stream. So if you're watching the live stream, I want you to let us know where you are tuning in from, okay? So just rep your city, rep your hood. Tell us if it's your first time. Just put hashtag first time in the chat. And if you're searching for employment, right, if you're looking for a job, tell us what you do. So you could put hashtag, project management, accounting and finance, operations, whatever it is that you do. Let us know in the chat so we can connect and network. And guys, we always like to bless this show with a prayer for the listeners. So if everybody could do me a big old favor, we're going to bow our heads real quick. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this beautiful, amazing day. I pray that you allow this show to be a conduit of your work. I pray that you allow this show to bring divine connection for those who are listening, networking opportunities that can open doors that only you can open, Lord. all these things in your mighty name, the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
And we got a lot to be grateful for. We have so many landings. We have a lot of folks that are back to their cash flow. So I'm going to raise my gun real quick, and we're going to celebrate, okay? So if you guys can do me a big favor and give me a round of applause. I got some names we're going to announce here. So we've got Cheryl McWeaver. We got Sean Washburn. We've got Ray Carrick, and we got Travis Hammer.
We got you. We got you.
And I ran out of cash flow.
Make it rain from over here. Here we go.
Man, that's crazy. Hold on. I got to reset. Wait, reset. Hold up. I got more. There we go. I can't go out like no punk. Okay, my money guns run out, but I got more. So let's go. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Woo. That's more like it. All right. We're just going to dive on in. I've got a very, very special guest here today that I'm excited to introduce to all of the listeners. We've got DeWayne Owens. And DeWayne, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio because it's really inspiring, and I think it can help our audience who may be going through some rough times, man. So it says here that DeWayne overcame a 15-year addiction to marijuana, cocaine, crack cocaine, to becoming an entrepreneur who helps inspire hope and a game plan for individuals through personal development and making the baby steps necessary to achieve their dreams. And you were also mentored by Zig Ziglar. Yes. So a big round of applause and a welcome to the stage, DeWayne. DeWayne, man, that's what's up. So, okay, I got to really ask you about your backstory because, man, there's some stuff in there. So talk to me about at what point in life and what was going on behind the scenes in your life that had you, addicted to drugs and all that kind of stuff going on. Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. Before we get started, can I take a moment to down about 3 cups of coffee so I can match your energy, man?
Hey, let's go. Let's go.
There it is, man.
Cheers.
Yeah, I got a drinking problem still.
I got a little extra energy, man. It's just a little bit.
Anyway, thank you for asking that question. And I think for your audience, you really have to be mindful of the fact that addiction is real. It's out there. It's a life destroyer. If you're not careful, kids are getting into it at a lot earlier age than I did. The genesis of
what age? I'm curious because I got into it when I was 11, 12, 13 in that area.
Well, mine came later on in life. The genesis of my addiction did not begin until I stepped on a college campus.
Oh. And
the reason I did not begin that process until I had stepped on a college campus is I had this dream of one day playing in the NBA.
Okay.
Pretty much an illusion, but it was still hope for me. And what I've come to find out is when you have hope in something, it deters you from making a lot of bad decisions, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say is the word deterrent, right?
Yeah.
Because you knew that there's this goal out here you wanted to achieve, and a deterrent can work in that kind of a way. It can also work in, like for me, I was getting random drug tests and stuff like that, so that was a deterrent. It was just different. It was just a different type of deterrent. But yours was a goal-related deterrent, not necessarily like a punishment, like you're going to get caught type of deterrent.
Absolutely. I love the game of basketball, and so I was committed to trying to stay in shape as I was growing up. So, yeah, I got offered marijuana and drinking and all of that stuff coming up through junior high and high school, but
you were like, nah.
Because of my love for the game, I was like, nah, I'm not doing this stuff. They give me a joint, I'll take it home, flush it down the toilet, and that was it. However, when I started my freshman year at a college campus, shout out to Troy University. Woo, woo, woo.
Whoa, let's go.
It's Troy State when I began, but back then, I found out very quickly that I did not have the athletic skills to become a professional basketball player, much less a college player. So my A game actually went out the window, and I didn't have a plan B. So when you don't have a plan B for life, although I'm there at a higher educational institution, the dream is gone, but I'm there. And so for the reasons that were hopeful that kept me from making decisions that were not helpful was the reason I began to indulge in activity that wasn't helpful also. So we're at a college campus. You got people from all over the state. As a 17-year-old kid away from home for the first time in life, man, I'm just blown away by the social aspect of college life. And so if anyone here has ever been on a college campus, you understand that there's a lot of alcohol and drug usage that takes place recreationally. And so since I didn't have a plan B, I thought, okay, well, hey, these guys are here for the same reason I am. We're here to get an education. You know, they're relatively reasonably intelligent people, but, you know, they also smoke a little marijuana. They drink a little alcohol. And so I decided to open myself up to that experience. And for me, the problem was, and I've been diagnosed with an addictive personality.
Oh, I got that too.
The marijuana experience the first time was fun. I enjoyed it. I remember just laughing all night, and that was the problem, because that allowed me to embrace a second experience, which ultimately led to the third, fourth,
that's
and
kind of the
down
thing.
the line.
That's kind of the thing when it comes to drugs and these addictions. Like, you know, yeah, you're probably gonna like it. I mean, I mean, people like it, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I've met some
keep
people
doing it
that
because they
that
don't
had,
like it.
Yeah, I've met people that had
Sure.
horrifying experiences the first time.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I
I've
was
met
not that
too.
guy though.
I don't think I remember the first time smoking pot. I think I was just paranoid as all hell. I think I remember just being like I didn't have fun because I was so paranoid, right? Of like, I don't know, getting caught or whatever it was, you know? And I just felt like everyone knew I was high, you know? Like I couldn't just go talk to somebody. Like I felt like everybody knew,
Yeah.
you know? And I was probably like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You might have had a hallucinogenic agent in whatever you were smoking.
I don't know, man.
You never
It
know
was-
what you're getting. That's the problem, you know.
Well, and nowadays, I'm gonna tell you, it's scary because I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I mean, that was like when I was a teenager.
Praise God for that. Man.
Absolutely, and what's interesting now though is the stuff that is out there is like super super potent. Like, you know, there's a comedian, who was it? Cat Williams. He talks about smoking regular weed. It is like that you don't have that anymore. All right, it just doesn't exist. Anyway, we get off on a tangent, but it's an interesting conversation though. But so okay, you stopped. What was it that caused you to stop? Because I mean, it sounds like 15 years of addiction. That's got to be. There has to have been some kind of life event. Something happened that really shook you up to stop. What was it?
Well, great question, Trevor. You know, after starting with marijuana recreationally and taking that addiction, because it got to the point where I was doing it daily by the time I was a junior, senior, leaving school, and taking that addiction with me out in the real world. Incrementally, my tolerance for the drug just grew. So it took more to give me that feeling of a high sensation,
Right.
just to be normal. And it went from marijuana, and plus, when you're doing this stuff, you're hanging out with a different type of circle of influence. And so the circle of influence that I was hanging around with also just not did marijuana, but now I'm dabbing into cocaine. Now I'm dabbing into speed. And golly, and then at one point I started using crack cocaine. I'm what you would call a high functioning addict. I could do all of these drugs because I had a high tolerance physically for it, but I could still hold down a 9-to-5 job, and I could fool people on the job. They wouldn't know it, but the consumption of it was real. I mean, from the time I woke up, I take a lunch break, I'm doing it right after work, and that's what I did every day for 15 years.
Wow.
Not only are you doing it, but the places that you have to go in order to buy crack cocaine.
Right.
So it wasn't uncommon for me to be out in the streets of South Dallas at 2:00 in the morning looking for crack cocaine. It wasn't uncommon for me to put myself in a life-threatening position behind drugs because that's where I was. And the one thing I can tell you for absolute certainty, that it is only by the grace of God that I'm alive today.
I'm gonna give a mic drop for that.
Well,
Let's go.
I'll drop one too,
Let's
man, on that
go.
one. Here, you can drop one too, Drew.
I like it. I like it.
But the thing is, it's that was my life, and it got to the point, Trevor, where I became afraid of what the addiction was doing to me. You know, I was raised by some great parents. My father was a military man, 20 plus years. My mom, a great mother. That's just not the way I was raised. And I'm just really glad that they didn't have to experience some of the stuff that I was going through when I was going through the addiction. However, when it got to the point where I knew that crack cocaine was taking control of my life, the addiction was scary to me. I knew something had to change. If it didn't change, there's only one or two places I'm going to wind up. I was either in the penitentiary or dead.
But I got to ask you a question, though. So at what point, because this says 15 years, right? So it took, and I'm just asking the question, like it took 15 years to get to that, like, damn, this is a problem. It took 15 years?
Well, the thing is, I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay. So at a certain point, it was just became where you didn't even enjoy it anymore. And you got the addiction, and you got the problem.
No, it wasn't that I did not enjoy it. It's just that I was afraid of the control that it was taking over in my life.
Okay.
And I mean, so when you get to a point where you're kind of getting low on that stuff, and we used to call it fiending, when you're fiending for it, when you're yearning for it intensely, and it's not around and you can't get it. So the withdrawals that you're going through, it's very scary. And I did not like the feeling that I was going through. And I knew that I needed to stop. That's when I first knew I needed to stop some way, somehow.
Dang.
That's just the acknowledgement of it. But the process of stopping, that's a whole nother ball game right there.
Well, yeah, because you're already in the circles. You got the people that are around you that are doing it.
Who you know?
How do you, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They say you're the
on the negative spectrum, man.
Yeah, they say you're the average of the top 5 people you associate with or whatever. And so if you've got drug dealers and you've got, like, I think that people are generally a product of their environment. Generally. Doesn't mean that you can't outgrow your environment. It doesn't mean you can't move on or do bigger and better things. But generally, if you have bad soil and you're not getting sunlight and you're not getting watered, you're not going to grow.
Absolutely.
You're just going to die, slowly die. And that's what happens in a lot of places. Absolutely. And that's like when I was a kid. The reason why I'm saying this is because when I was growing up, that's what my environment was. I didn't have nourishment. I didn't have the soil and the light and the water. And then luckily, because I got in a lot of trouble, in and out of jail, and I was actually forced to move to my father's house, and that's when things changed because my father gave me discipline. He gave me structure. He gave me all of these. He gave me the nourishment that I needed and the right soil and the right light. Anyways, and so things really changed from that moment. And that's why I'm just curious in your story. Was there a person that helped you?
So I would say the turning point, Trevor.
Yeah, the turning point.
Is I knew that I needed to quit. So I actually stopped. And about a month into stopping, and I was working as a social worker around this particular time, I had a supervisor call me into his office, and he told me, DeWayne, we've had a couple of our coworkers complaining against your moodiness. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, I really think you may be suffering from clinical depression. Okay, so I'm a social worker. I'm like, okay.
So, real quick, because we just kind of glazed over that. You're a social worker drug addict.
Yeah, that's the irony of it, man.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody took time out. That was almost a mic drop.
Well, no, we're going to put the mic back. Hold on. We're going to put the mic back in the bowl.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
But, however, being an undercover social worker, there were things that I was still learning about this addiction. For instance, the power of forgiveness.
Oh.
I learned that principle before I became a born-again Christian. So I was escorting some of the clients that had drug and alcohol issues to an NA meeting. And I'm sitting in this meeting, and this guy's talking about families that produce alcoholics and drug addicts. And I'm thinking, he's talking about the dysfunctionality of those families. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, that's me, man. And so he explains the functionality of it, and then he says what you can do right now, because a lot of us, we blame our addiction on someone else, my father, the way I was raised, one of those type of things, and that was me. And so
I had that too.
So when I heard that and I understood it, and I blamed my father for a lot of my addiction, which was wrong, but I blamed him for it. He was the one. I immediately in that meeting, unbeknownst to anyone, it was just a private decision, decided to forgive my father. Because I understand whatever I was lacking with my father, he had probably lacked doubly with his father. And so when I made that decision, the power of decision is great. When I made the decision to forgive my father, Trevor, Drew, it felt like the weight of the world came off of my shoulder. Just the physiological impact that had on me making that decision. I was like, wow. And I decided to fly back to Alabama from Texas and embrace my father and give him a hug, let him know I loved him and I forgave him. And when I started talking about forgiving him, he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? I said, Dad, I've blamed a lot of things on you from my life. And you remember how you told me about some of the issues you had with Granddad, your dad? He said, yeah, well, those are some of the issues that I had with you.
Wow. And
so I've just decided to forgive you. Now, it probably didn't mean a whole lot to him, but it meant everything to me. Now, where I began, when I was talking to my supervisor and I agreed, I said, look, if I have a clinical depression, I really need to know. The one thing I know about being a social worker is that therapy is important. It's needed and it's life-giving, but you have to acknowledge some truths. So I decided to go get a assessment done. And so I gave the psychiatrist my background. He said, DeWayne, he said, there's no way I can formulate a diagnosis for you. You've been doing so much drugs for so much time. It's going to take at least 8 months to get all of that stuff out of your system. Wow. And then only then can I formulate a diagnosis. When he said that, I knew that I wasn't depressed. I was just going through withdrawals. He said, are you sleeping at night? I said, as a matter of fact, no. He said, that's why you have the moody issue during the day with your coworkers, because you're not sleeping at night. You can't be awake all night and expect to be productive all day. And so that was pretty much the genesis of me understanding I had to do something. Now, for the real turnaround, it was only at the point that I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior that I walked away from it forever. How did I get to the Jesus Christ point? I started going to a seminar and heard a motivational speaker for the first time. He mentioned several people, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Tony Robbins, all these big names, people I had never heard of before.
Les Brown. I'm trying to get Les on this show. I'm like second connection away. Like I'm there.
Just an awesome
he's an awesome
encourager. But there was something about Zig that drew me in more than the other speakers, because when Zig starts talking about the wheel of life, these 7 spokes which included the spiritual aspect of your life, that's the wheel that I didn't want to broach. I mean, yeah, let's talk about, financial success. Let's talk about mental success. Let's talk about physical stuff. But that God stuff you're trying to bring to me, Zig, I don't want to hear that.
Why? What was it that was what you were rejecting? What was it?
That's a good question, because I wanted to live life my way on my terms.
Okay.
But there was something about Zig that over time built up credibility with me. And I'm like, this is a good man. He's very successful. He knows what he's talking about. I should at least give what he's talking about a chance.
And so you were mentored by him personally for how long?
Well, I've known, really he was more accessible just before he got sick and passed away. So that's when I just had the awesome opportunity to spend more time with him, because I live close to the office, know his son, Tom Ziglar. But at any rate, getting back to that, so I started this search for spirituality. So I started looking at New Age stuff and some other stuff. But ultimately what happened, I came to accept Christ. When I accepted Christ, I was able to walk away from the drugs completely, never looking back again. And so it was a supernatural experience, because here's the one thing that I had to do also. I had to change my lifestyle. So you just can't say, I'm going to quit drugs and continue to do the same things you've been doing. So I joined a church, joined a men's group, started compensating my time with that portion of my life, and just fell in love with Christ, fell in love with the Bible, started trying to develop as a young man. And it was funny, because after I started reading the Bible.
How old were you at that point?
35 years old.
35. Wow.
Yeah. I was a late bloomer, man.
No, hey, listen, I mean, it's the reason I'm asking some of those questions about timeline and all of that. Just, you know, I have a similar, you know, like, but mine was just so early when I was super, super young. And then I'm seeing myself in you when you're saying like the transformation. So at age 16 is when I moved to my father's, and I remember, okay, now I'm getting out of the environment I was in, and now I'm being placed, you know, going to church and, you know, getting into a new environment and what that looked like, you know. And yeah, it's just I love your story, man. It's just that's why I was curious at the timeline.
Well, what was born out of that was purpose for me, because I realized I was influenced very heavily by Zig, and one of the things I want to say just before I go into that, I really want to commend you for praying before each show.
Well,
man, you're just building up treasures in heaven. So what Zig did when he was alive, he would have what's called the Monday morning devotion. And so he would invite speakers nationally and internationally to come in on a Monday morning, the first meeting of the day, in his office to give a devotion. And then Zig would always give his testimony after that. What Zig would say is, you know what? There's going to be a lot of meetings in this corporate headquarters during the course of this week, but none more important than this one. And so what that showed me is his relationship with God. I mean, as charismatic as he was on the stage, as awesome, brilliant speaker that he was just a better man off the stage. He was one of the most humble men I had ever met in my life. And I said, I see why he's so successful in this industry, because of the relationship he has with that man who controls all industries up there. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I wanted to help change people's lives. I didn't want anyone going through the experiences that I went through, that 15-year drug addiction. All that 15 years, man, that I could have been fed something that was life growing, illuminating, that could make a difference in life. I mean, I just spent it in a sewer mentality. And I said, this doesn't have to happen to young people. They need to be fed the right information. And although Zig was able to speak corporately, all of his principles came biblically out of the Bible. He could tell you that. And so,
well, I love that too, because that's a Trojan horse strategy, right? Pastor Joel Scribner at Oaks Church, shout out to you. He has a book called Winology, and his book is about winning in life, relationships, business. It's all about winning. And he was a 4-time Taekwondo world-class champion. This guy, you know, he's a fighter, right? Yeah. He says he kicks butt for Jesus, you know. But yeah, so he's anyway, he wrote this book called Winology, and it's about just winning, the principles of winning. And when you read it, and then it allows him to go into corporate America, because they won't let a pastor in, right? Into spaces that they're not going to allow a pastor in. He's able to go in as a coach,
yes,
and coach, you know, these corporations. And then people run up to him and say, what, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's just all like, you know, people are just blown away by it. And then, where did you get this? And it's like, it's the Bible. Like, I'm translating it into business language. You know what I mean? And so it sounds like very similar to what Zig Ziglar was doing.
Well, what Zig realized is that many of the people that admired and respected him and came to these devotional meetings weren't believers. They weren't Christians.
Sure.
So what he was able to do for the kingdom is to give his testimony. And he would do this corporately in conferences also. So after he'd give a great speech, he's like, if you really want to know the secret to my success, meet me back in this room afterwards and I'll tell you. And that's when he went in and told people about his relationship with Christ. And so that's how he gave back to God, because he knew that he had a platform to reach people all around the world, and they revered and respected him. And this is the opportunity that he had to be able to tell people about Christ. And I saw that, and I was like,
well, I'm in an interesting place with this show and the platform that we've created. I'm at an interesting point. I'm like, it's scary, because I've come to the realization, I used to say this all the time. Like, I remember I never voted, like politics or anything. I never voted. like for years and years. And I remember being like, oh, why would I waste my time on that? You know, why would I waste my energy on that? I remember my 20-year-old self saying these kinds of things. And I always remembered saying, well, if I had a microphone, if I had a platform, if I had, then yeah, but I'm just one vote. So what does my vote really matter? I remember saying these things. And then here I am now. I do have a platform now. I do have a microphone. And I'm like, wait a minute. I almost feel a responsibility to speak truth and my truth and how I feel about things. And at the same token, we're also in a culture where I could get canceled for speaking some of the things that I feel and think and believe. And it's a really, really tough place to be in because I feel a responsibility. And at the same time, I feel like risk. Mm-hmm. Like there's risk if I were to just open up about certain things. So I commend Zig Ziglar for using his platform to speak about the word. Because that is even in our culture right now. Shoot, the word's under attack. And the word's been under attack for a long time. Yeah, I'm just going to say that. The word's been under attack for a long time. Yeah. You know, they're taking it out of schools. And, I mean, it's... Yeah. Anyways, we can go on a tangent, but I appreciate you even doing that.
But you're doing it. I mean, you opened up the show with prayer. I mean, that's a risk right there in and of itself. Most shows that I go to, they don't open up in prayer. The fact that you're doing that publicly is making people see, okay, he's one of those Christians.
One of those guys.
He's one of those guys. Yeah.
One of those guys.
But still, the show produces content, resources. Yeah. Because it's for the people that are going through unemployment, for that person who doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, for that person who has to go to a church just to get groceries to feed their family. I've been there. I understand that. And when you need resources like what this show provides, you know, you could put up with a prayer for that. You know, you might even win someone over. But
oh my goodness, so yeah, there's a group where this all started. It was this church, Stonebriar Community Church. They have a networking group there called Frisco Connect. And absolutely, there were people that were there for the career resources, right? That's why they're there. And they're not Christians, they're not believers, they're whatever, but they're there for the free resources because they were good. And so they need to get back to their income, get back to work. But through that, through being there and being around other, believers and all of this, and people were transformed and converted and just saved. Really, I don't even know if I like the word converted. That's kind of I don't know. It just feels weird. Saved, right?
Yes.
People were saved, and they would break down, and they would come back and they'd tell their story, and it was so interesting. They'd come back and they'd tell their story, and they would say a couple things. I landed a job because of who you know. It was somebody in my network. It was somebody I connected with. Yeah. They would also say, and God led me through this journey, and God was connecting those dots. It was always people, but God was the one connecting the dots and opening the doors for those divine connections. And that's what I prayed for today. It's like, I need the audience, if they're going through that, like, hey, listen, divine connections. Connect with each other in the comments. Connect with each other. Say, it's an instant door opener when you reach out to somebody and you say, hey, I saw you were in the chat of the Who You Know show. What a great show. What did you think about it? Boom. Got a door opener right there.
Absolutely.
Start having conversations.
Absolutely.
Well, let me say this. I was prompted when you mentioned your story in 15 years and that time, right? We can look back and think wasted time or, man, those years, what could I have done with that time? People even in between jobs, they could feel this is just, I'm wasting my life. I'm in between, and there's a passage in Scripture that says God will restore what the enemy has taken. And I think, you can apply that financially. You can apply that to years of your life and output what you could produce with your life. And I think God truly can put you right where you need to be, right back where you think I've lost time, I've missed out on opportunity, and God can say, no, I can just put my hand on this and move you into exactly where I want you to be. And so I hope that encourages some people that may be listening, feeling like, man, I missed out.
That's a good point.
If you have faith to receive that, I would encourage those listening to just take hold of that and believe that for themselves.
I love that. I'm gonna give you a mic drop for that.
All right.
And that's, guys, for those that are listening, that's Drew Jackson, okay? And we're going to get to his story in a moment. And Drew is a freaking mic dropper, okay? Well, he just gave us some wisdom, okay? That's a masterclass. You need to take that. Take notes.
Right.
If y'all aren't taking notes, what's wrong with you? I'm just saying. I do have a couple more questions for you, DeWayne. So tell me about your journey as a speaker, because now you are motivational, inspiration, right? You're on stages, you're doing your thing. Talk. What topics are you usually covering in your speeches?
Yeah.
In your keynotes?
Most of what I do are in keynotes is personal development stuff.
Okay.
It's topics of encouragement. I do a lot of team building stuff.
Okay.
Talk about leadership, integrity, things of that nature. The beginning of my speaking career actually started with the North Texas Workforce Career Centers around here, and so it was my first paid speaking gigs, right? And I was just excited about it.
How much?
But,
I'm curious. How much was it? Your first one, your very first check.
$500.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hey, let's go.
$500.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Hey, how long did you have to speak for?
2 hours.
2 hours? Hey.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's $250 an hour.
Yeah,
boy.
yeah. Come
Of
on.
course, you know you prepared for like 12 hours beforehand, right?
Yeah, but Drew talks about being restored, and so it actually went from 500 actually to doubling within 2 or 3 years up to $1,000. So
That's amazing.
But at any rate, I wanted to get into that venue that like Les Brown and Zig. I wanted to do the motivational stuff, and I remember going out as much as I should, and don't. It wasn't that I did not appreciate the fact that I was going out and I was getting paid $500 to do a 2-hour workshop, but it wasn't the passionate thing that I wanted to do. I was going out to teach on resume writing. Okay, so I'm appreciative, but I'm like, wow, who really gets up for resume writing, And so I get there to the workforce center. There's about like 30 people sitting in there, right? But now by this time I'm a believer, right? So it was the Holy Spirit that said, ask them this question. And it was for me more so than them, because I was a little bummed about it. And I was like, is there anyone in here by show of hands who has never written a resume before? 3/4 of the hands in that class went up. And I said, wow.
Hey, I've got a surprise for you. I've never written a resume either.
Wow. And not surprising. But then I realized there's a higher purpose beyond my desire to do something. These are people out here that have been laid off. They're in their 40s and their 50s. They're the baby boomers. They're the ones brought up to stay in the industry 20, 30 years on the same job. That was stability. So for the first time, they've not had to write a resume
Fish
before.
out of water.
Now they're trying to get back into the industry, and here's the kicker. 90% of the people that wanted to get back into the market didn't want to get back into the same industry they just came out of.
Ooh.
And it's like, but what do I do now?
Yeah.
All my skill set is in this industry. All my experience is in this industry. But the things that I'm passionate about, I have no experience. Who's going to pay me for this? And at that point I realized, okay, there's the seminar I need to create in order to give them the courage to be able to step out and do something new, what that entails, what your mindset has to be. And so all these different seminars started evolving around people that have been laid off and providing resources, but there's a mindset that has to be taken into account also. Now,
I'm going to tell you, DeWayne, I love that. Like, you're speaking my language now, because when you can, I have some programs that I put together and people will go through them and stuff like that, and I'm doing some coaching and some training and all this and that, and then certain times you'll see this transformation. Some people come through it and they get results, and that's great, but some people come through it and are completely transformed.
Yes.
They do. Like, I've got a guy right now I'm working with, shout out Mike Materian. Like, he is literally being transformed again for the second time. And it's just so cool to watch it and to give people that courage to step out, right? And to also help them. Like, I'm literally with Mike, I love him so much. We've just built such a great relationship. Like, I'm giving him, free consulting and like helping him build his business right now.
Awesome.
And I can't wait to just see him crush it.
Yes,
you know
great.
what I mean? Because he's tired of the corporate BS.
Yeah.
There's a lot of corporate BS. And anyway, go ahead.
Well, there's something you have to do when you're going through unemployment. Is you have to, first of all, you have to treat your schedule as if you are employed. You have to understand the value of your time.
Absolutely.
And so I try to tell people
Mic
all
drop.
the time. I try to tell people all the time, even if you don't have aspirations of being an entrepreneur, you really need to put on an entrepreneur hat so you can understand the value of you and your time.
That's an interesting conversation. I want to stop you real quick. I want to dig in. I want to ask you both this question, actually. Think about that. The mindset of the value of your time, right? And certain people work at a different frequency, right? So like, I bet if we all asked each other what we thought the value of our time was worth, it'd be a different number, right? And then you go ask a guy like, Elon Musk or something, right? Now they're worth so much more, but like, what's the value of your time worth, right? And I think that that's just an interesting conversation because, again, the three of us, what's the value of your time? What do you think you are worth? Right?
That's a good question.
And it's like your worth. What is your worth?
What am I doing during that time? I think factors in.
Yeah,
I would think
True that. Priorities, prioritization,
but also
of time, right?
exactly. Like what activities are you doing at the time? How much? And John Maxwell talks about this. There are certain times throughout the day where I don't have to show up 100%. Right? There are times when I can be more 60% because I'm shaking hands. I'm not, but when I'm speaking, I got to be 100%. People expect 100%. They expect, and so during that time,
you're worth
that's
more.
A different value. Yeah. So that's what comes to mind. You talk about mindset, right? We all are going to kind of interpret that differently.
That's good. I love that. To me, this is just an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Like the value of time.
Well, let me give you,
and like to your point, are you in your low-paying activities? Are you doing the things that are like this is?
Are you
higher-paying
researching?
activity?
Are you preparing?
Correct.
Whatever, or are you delivering?
Are you doing like email tasks?
Yeah.
Like
you're checking off your
Yeah.
to-do list. Yeah.
Right.
And plus the fact that there are others who may not respect the value of your time also. So they think just because you're laid off, you got all the time in the world, right?
Oh, no.
Can you come over here and watch the two kids this weekend? You're not working anyway, right?
Yeah.
So come on over. But if they're
busy.
not going to respect your time unless you respect your time. And so you
that's
need to
good.
think in terms of, hey, my job search needs to be a 9 to 5. I need to get up in the morning and I need to work about 3 hours, take me about an hour lunch break, and then come back and work about 3 or 4 more hours. And your time needs to be dedicated to learning how to write an effective resume, learning interview skills, learning about networking, watching the Who You Know show.
Hey, that's what I'm talking
But
about.
your time needs to be dedicated to that. And a lot of people aren't doing that. And the other thing that people that are going through unemployment really need to do is they really need to take the time out for introspection. You really need to take a dive into yourself and find out what it is you're born to do, what it is you're passionate about, how you can make a living in one or two different industries, whether you're bought up to be a small business owner, sole proprietor, or do you just want to work for someone for the rest of your life? You need to find the answer out to do that.
What do you do, like personally, to get that introspection, to really identify, hey, I'm dealing with a challenge or whatever it is. What you need to do? Like, what do you personally do? Or do you journal? Do you find quiet time? Like, are there some certain things that you do?
That's a great question. For me, it's a daily hour spent in reflection. Now, this is something I learned from Zig. Zig came up in a different era, but what Zig said he would do, he would spend at least an hour in reflection. Then he would spend time reading the newspaper so he could know what's going on.
So do you
socially.
mean reflection like the previous day or the day?
So I get me a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And I sit down, and it's 2 chairs, and me in one chair, God in the other chair. Something I got from my friend Bob Bodine out there. But it's taking time to be quiet.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times when we pray, we're the ones communicating. But we're not listening. And God wants to speak to you.
Yes.
He wants to give you, he knows what you're going through. That's why he says, before you ask, I know. But you have to take the time to listen to him. You have to understand his voice, the shepherd's voice. Because there's a lot of different voices. There's your own voice in your head, which is the voice that's probably not too prudent. Then there's the voices of other people out there that think they know your situation, but they don't know. Then there's social media's advice to you.
Oh.
But there's the one voice. And if you can get past all those other voices, will give you all the answers that you need. But it's a discipline. It's a practice. You really can't be sporadic about this. It has to be a commitment. People say, well, I just don't have time to do that stuff. Well, get up an hour earlier.
Right.
Because what you will find out is that it will be worth your time to do it.
You know, I've done this, what you're talking about, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm, perfect, okay? Because I make mistakes, and I've fallen out of the routine, actually. But I have been in that. I've had that discipline, and I've had that routine of, I call it coffee with Jesus, and wake up, Bible, coffee, prayer journal, right? And I would write out my prayers in the journal. And through those prayers in the journal, like, I would hear from God. A lot of times I'm writing out the challenges, the problems, or the things that I want, the family members I need to heal, or whatever it is. I'm writing it out. And thankfulness and gratitude and all of those things, right?
So let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
Trevor. If you and I were talking one-to-one, and you're telling me about some challenges that you're having in your life, would you have a notebook and be writing it out as we're talking?
No, I'd be just talking.
Yeah, we'd be tuned into each other.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we try to be a little bit too formal with God. He's God the Father. That's the formal expression. But he's also Abba. He's Daddy. And Daddy wants the relationship with his son where you're transparent. You're not writing stuff down. You're just talking to him, and you're hearing from him, just like you did if you had a good model of a father that was here on earth. But that's the relationship he wants to build with you, so that you could just be candid, you can just be transparent. He already knows everything that you're thinking anyway.
That's
so
true.
When you can break that down and say, God, yeah, I need to come clean with you. I know you know about this filthy stuff I'm thinking. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Well, for years, I never went there with God. I knew he knew some of the stuff that I was thinking, some of the sins that were there mentally, because Jesus is trying to intercept the stuff mentally before it plays out physically. So he'll say, hey, look, if you're looking at a woman with lust, you've already sinned, buddy. So let's just kind of nip it in the bud right here. And Father, I don't have the strength not to be able to look at that woman without a lustful thought. I don't have the power to do it. Well, the Bible says who the Lord sets free is free indeed. You can't set yourself free. If you have an addiction to pornography, which a lot of men do, even in the clergy, if we're going to be real about it, you can't deliver yourself from that. That has to be, when you looked at Jesus' ministry, he went around placing hands on people, the blind, the sick. He delivered them. They could not deliver themselves. When it comes to issues like this, you can't deliver yourself, but God can deliver you from it. But you have to, so proximity precedes theology. God will get close to you, but you have to get close to him too. And the closer you get to him, you will see him flick a switch in your life. And things that you had urges for, you don't. You know you didn't do it, but it's not there. It's not anything that just happens like that, but over a couple of months or so, you're like, wow, I haven't thought
Wait a
this.
minute.
I hadn't did this in a while. Yeah. And so he's able to work that way in your life. And that's why a relationship with him, an intentional fortitude going after him, he will show you miraculous things in your life, because the Bible says he will give you exceedingly abundantly and above anything you could ask or pray. So you can't even conceive the great thing that he has for you. We know that he has plans for us. So his plans for us are greater than our greatest dreams for ourselves, because we can't even think about what he has out there in store for us. We just get to experience it, man. And it's like, wow, that was a God thing. I had nothing to do with that, man.
There's the motivational speaker right there.
He's doing it. I love it. I absolutely love what you're laying down, man. And so why don't we do this, okay? We've got a big old audience of folks. We got Suzanne Carter. She says, so good. You know what I'm saying? Jason Hopper says, mic drop, love it. Appreciate you. Over here on Clubhouse, or I said Clubhouse, on LinkedIn Audio, we got Kelly Kapoor, we got Daniel Hall, we got 𝐼𝑵𝑵, we got Ashley, John Ballard in the house. So here's what we want to do. Actually, let me turn that down. Can you turn
I got you.
that down? That'd be good. Let's do a giveaway. You got a book too you want to talk about, right?
Yes, I do. I have a book called...
You have a whole book shelf over there full of books.
It's called Awakening the Workplace. It's a collaborative effort I did with some authors from around the globe, really. The particular section that I have is about that introspection that I'm telling you to take the time out for. So there's several questions in there that it's an exercise that you will take the time out to dig into yourself and find out what's really going on inside of you and what's the motivation to do something that you're called to do, but you have to know what that is. Typically, an exercise like that will take, I would say, about an hour. I've had some people tell me it took them like 3 or 4 days because for the first time in their lives, they're really doing some real introspection. They're going into depths of themselves and being very transparent with themselves to find out certain things. And so it's a life changer. And so it's one of those things that I
You want to open it up for me? Sorry. I apologize. Go ahead. Continue. There was just an echo going on. It's fine. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
so just
Sorry. Go ahead.
So at any rate, that's the chapter that I have in the book. That will help the person that's trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to go back into the industry I came out of, but now there's doubt. I want to do something different. I don't know what the different is, or they know the new difference that they want to, but they don't know how to go about it. And so this opens up the door for that type of transition in your life. So I'm happy to give a few of those books away for.
Well, let's do this. I'm going to give it away to a couple of folks in the audio room, okay, because y'all hanging out in the audio room. Let's give one to my buddy Daniel Hall.
All right,
Love
Daniel.
my buddy Daniel Hall.
All right.
Daniel Hall's got an amazing tool out there called Peekaboo Live. It allows you to grab some amazing analytics from your live streams and from your social posts, and actually will show you who exactly your audience is. So very, very cool tool. So shout out to you, Daniel. Yeah, he's giving the heart emoji right now. So we want to give you that book, Daniel, because you've been so supportive to the Who You Know community. He's basically running these reports for me, showing me exactly who my audience is, so I know who they are and I can reach out and show some love back, which is cool, super cool. So Daniel, thank you so much. We want to give you a book. I also want to give another book. Let's go to John Ballard. John Ballard is always coming to the events and showing love and showing support, so we appreciate you, John Ballard. For those that are watching online, I'm sorry. I know I normally give it to the watchers, but we're also got listeners going on, so I'm just sharing the love, guys. Don't go anywhere. Actually, before we do that, I was gonna go to a commercial break. Before we do that, can you do me a favor, everybody online? If we can go to a wide shot, Ziggy, let's go to a wide shot. And I want you to take a screenshot right now if you're watching online, okay? I want you to take a screenshot, and I want you to post this all over social media. Tag DeWayne. Let him know what was one of your favorite moments, your inspirational moments, something that he said that really maybe, that you felt. You know what I'm saying? It pulled out your heartstrings, you know? So I want you to do that. And post it on social media, tag him in it, and blow him up. Let him know what the Who You Know show is all about. What's the best way for the audience to connect with you, DeWayne?
They could email me at DeWayne, and that's spelled DeWayne, and that's DeWayne at DeWayneOwens.org. DeWayne at DeWayneOwens.org.
Hey guys, blow him up, and I got some extra books for you. Just saying.
Blow it up.
Blow him up. I want you to just hit him up. Be like, yo, I heard you on this Who You Know show. You were dropping the mics and all the fire and the money guns was shooting everywhere. And I love what you're talking about. Let him know how much we appreciate him. Hit his email up. You know what I'm saying? I got a book for you.
There
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, DeWayne, I appreciate you so much. Guys,
All
we got to
right,
go to
much
a real
love.
quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we got Drew Jackson in the house. We got some more mic drops. We'll be right back.
If anyone is out there and you're a realtor or you are looking to get your real estate license, it's a very low cost entry, $300 to take your real estate course online. Inexpensive compared to like a college. EXP is $150 to join and it's like $84 a month. So relatively speaking, these are very inexpensive costs. If you are interested in that and you want to work with me as a realtor, I'd love to have you join my team, and you want to hear about the model, then go to join10xempire.com, and I do this opportunity call every Tuesday. Would love to answer your questions and tell you more about what I'm doing. If anyone out there is interested in working with me,
You know you have something unique to offer your next employer, whether it's your experience or your work ethic or your passion or your personality. But how do you stand out from the crowd when you're stuck sending plain text emails that lack personality, lack humanity, and worst of all, look like every other email in the inbox? Job seekers just like you are discovering how easy it is to put their humanity back into their communication and back into their job search with BombBomb Video. Visit bombbomb.com to start a free trial today and rehumanize your job search.
Hey guys, come work for the most innovative company in the world, 10X Incubator. We're launching 10,000, listen to me, 10,000 tech companies in 10 years. If you're a coder, what?
We got
programmer,
coders, we got graphic designers, we got copywriters, digital marketers, biz dev.
you name it.
You
If
got
you
skill.
like tech, love tech,
hungry.
want to be in tech, okay? We don't actually require that you get the jab here either. Just so you know, if you want it, good. If you don't want it, no problem. We are hiring. We want you. If you're good at your job, if you're disciplined, if you want to be paid well, if you want to be taken care of, if you want to be in a 10X environment, click the link below. Give us your resume and a short video, 30-second video. Just tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. We want you. We want you.
Let's go.
We want you.
Welcome back to the Who You Know Job Networking Show, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. Let me tell you who I know. I know this man named Drew Jackson. And Drew is an executive coach and leadership trainer who creates leaders and team members that you love to follow. And as a certified coach, human behaviorist consultant, and Lead Now Model 360 consultant, Drew is able to utilize tools and training to help increase revenue, boost morale, and retain top talent. So if I can get a warm who you know welcome for Drew Jackson. Let's go. All right, Drew, my first question for you, my friend. All right, we're talking about retaining top talent. It's a very, very hot topic going on right now. And we just went through the Great Resignation. Mm-hmm. Now we're headed into a recession. And
you got any more good news?
What do you think companies should do? Because this is like the most interesting time. I don't think we've ever seen it before. Where, listen, we're trying to retain top talent in an environment where employee demands are at an all-time high. Right? Employees have a lot of demands right now. And at the same time, we may be facing hiring freezes and layoffs and things like that. What do you think companies should be doing to retain talent in a time where, hey, demands are high, but hey, maybe profits are low?
Yeah. Well, I'm a simple man, so I'm just got some simple stuff to say. I think first and foremost, you got to treat people how you want to be treated, right? The golden rule. Yeah. Keeping it simple, right? Keeping it simple. I'm not the first person to say that. But then beyond that, once we know people, so once we have people that work, they're on our team, they're in our organization, and we're in the same environment. We know them. We know their preferences. We know how they like to be spoken to, how they like to be communicated with. At that point, once we know somebody, we need to treat them how they want to be treated. So not just like, hey, this is how I like to work. I'm the boss. Do what I say. Do things my way. No, we need to say, hey, if I'm coming to Trevor and I have something I want to communicate to Trevor, then the best thing I can do is say, what's the best way for Trevor to receive this message? right? Because ultimately, I want you to receive the message, run with it, right? There's information I'm trying to transfer to you. There's something I need you, an action I need you to take. The best thing I could do is say, hey, Trevor receives messages best when I ask him how his day is going first. Hey, Trevor, how's your day going? Man, it's going great. Awesome. Hey, I had this thing I need to run by you. We're good, right? And then there's other people that they just get to business. Just tell me in a bullet point what you need from me, and I'm on it. I don't need you to ask me about my day, my dog, anything. that actually, right? Some people are annoyed by that. Yeah. So treat people
That's
how
me.
Is that you?
I'm like, just what? Come on. Time is, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm actually like
that.
Yeah.
So the best way to come to you after I've known you for a little while would be to hit the bullet points with you.
Yeah.
And treat you how you want to be treated. Other than that, deal with the problems. The biggest thing, when you don't deal with people, especially in this environment, the Great Resignation, man, if I confront this person and I tell this person on my team that they're not performing how they need to perform, and other team members are frustrated by their lack of performance, but in my mindset, as the leader of this team, I go, man, if I confront them, they're just going to go find another job. It's the whole thing. Well, what if you don't confront them? They stick around, right? Low performer sticks around, right?
Hold on. I love that.
Am I right?
We're getting into that. We're going to get into that later. But a good hire is an asset.
Has lots of options
too. A bad hire is a liability.
Yeah, exactly. Right. A person that's performing well has lots of options. They're the one that can go get another job. The person that's not performing well, they can't find another job.
There you go.
But who was it? Was it Zig Ziglar that said, somebody said this, I should know this, train people well enough so that they can leave, treat them well enough so that they won't want to.
Yeah.
Who was that? Who said that?
A few of them, Branson's definitely said it as well. So Richard Branson
got it.
Said a variation of that as well. And it's that whole concept of you're stuck with them if you don't train them, and you're stuck with a low performing person. So address it. And what I've found is, as you just process through this, if you've had any experience with confronting a person that's not performing well, the initial response is usually not, well, I'm going to go find another job. It's usually not. Most of the time people go, man, I want to be in right relationship with these folks. So what do I got to do to get things corrected? And so by doing that, you're going to keep your top performing people. So you've got to just think about creating that environment where people want to work. A couple other things. I mean, people love a vision. We talked about this with DeWayne and his story. Everybody wants a personal life vision that's motivating, that moves you forward, but people also want a vision for the organization. Where are we going? What am I don't want to show up and do something each day not feeling like I'm contributing to an overarching goal, some bigger picture that we're moving towards. So communicate that to your team. So those are just a few of the items that you can do with your team to create that environment where people want to stick around. They want to be a part of what you're doing.
I love that. Yes. I love that. And I think a lot of that is culture, right? And creating the, like you said, the direction of the company, allowing your employees to know where you're headed and things like that. That's part of the culture. What leadership tips or tricks or whatever you want to call it do you have for creating remote culture? That's a challenging. I think that's part of the issue we're seeing right now with a lot of people. They're disconnected because they're at home, right? And there's a place for remote work. I'm not saying there's not, but it creates a culture challenge, right? Where it's like, I just don't feel it as much as if we brought everybody together as a company with a rah-rah kind of a meeting, and this is where we're headed, this is where we're going, and we do that on a Zoom. It's kind of like, right?
Yeah. So there are people that are wired to be in the office, and organizations that are created, and they just want office culture, and that's just that's who they are. And there are people that are high performers. I'm married to one, very good at her job, and they go in the office twice a month, and she is A-okay with that. Yeah, exactly. And so I think you have to know your people, know what you've created, and if your environment is conducive to an ongoing remote environment. But think about it. What are you missing out on? When I worked in an office, in an organization, when you go to the bathroom, you pass somebody's office. I say, hey, you might shoot the bull, right? Hey, how's it going? What are you up to? You doing anything this weekend? You might just kind of check in on them, see how they're doing. Some leaders make it a point to walk the halls slowly, have these, impromptu just conversations with people. So how can you create that in a virtual environment? Well, you can create 15-minute meetings, check-ins with people. It's not formal. We're not talking about anything in particular. I'm just checking in on you. I'm just seeing how you're doing. Yeah. And we don't have that happening in the office place, so I'm doing it virtual. I'm doing it over the phone. I'm doing it in an environment where we can kind of create those moments throughout the day. And I think you just have to...
Those little micro touch points that are just checking in, even to the point like, if you've ever had somebody that you respect, someone that's a leader to you, your boss or whatever, and they come and they get literally like a little pat on the back, that kind of a thing, it really helps boost you. I remember I had a managing partner that I work with, and he invited me just to lunch, not no formal, just to say, hey man, you're doing a great job, and just invited me to lunch, and that meant the world to me. It was like, it meant the world to me. I was like, this guy believes in me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And this is somebody I put up here, respected, and he believes in me. Whoa, enough to invite me to lunch and stuff. It felt
well. And here's just being in those executive coaching sessions where people are very vulnerable, high level leaders are very vulnerable. They would say, man, my team they don't want to do that. They don't want me to set aside time. That's a waste of their time. And there's these insecurities, right, that come up. And so many times leaders, managing partners, whatever the case is, can talk themselves out of reaching out to a person in the organization thinking they don't really want to spend time with me. I'm just an old guy, or I'm an old guy. They're not interested, right? And so you have to break through your own insecurities in that way and reach out. And do for the one what you wish you could do for the many, right? Maybe you have 500 employees. You can't do that with every single person.
Sure.
But if you feel, you know what, I really want to reach out to this person. I want to check in with this person. And I think we can't get comfortable with thinking that everybody's bought in, that everybody's okay, that everybody on our team is running with us, and we have to do those check-ins. We have to do those stop-ins. How you doing? Hey, I'm just going to text you real quick. I'm going to check in with you. I'm gonna message you. I know you're not directly in my line, and this is going outside of the line, but I just felt a need to check in on you and see how you're doing. And those types of pop-ins are how you can keep those relationships and keep those dynamics going, where people feel connected to the vision in the organization.
You know what I really have picked up recently that works really well is just a simple, like LinkedIn allows you to do it, and certain apps allow you to do it, and even text message allows you to do it, voicemail. It's a voice message. It's not a voicemail like a phone call.
Yes.
Not that type of voicemail.
Or even a video.
Video message, yep. But simply just like, I'll leave them in DMs all the time, just a little voice, message, and just saying, hey, just was thinking about you, wanted to connect with you, whatever. And man, it really does. It breaks through so much more than a little text message would.
Yeah.
And shows that person that you actually really care. Anyway. So that's good.
That's good.
What about if someone is question? So what about if someone is, they want that remote environment, right? But it's probably like not the best environment for them, right? That there are people that would be better suited for office. They need someone to watch and see and show those human connection and that human touch. The people that I'm talking about
they might just need the structure.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have the discipline. Not that the job necessarily doesn't even get done, right? Sometimes the job can get done, but it's just like there is a discipline I feel like it takes to work from home, and the whole country all of a sudden was thrown into it, right? And then, of course, everyone wants it, right? Because they got to see, oh, wow, there's all these advantages to it.
Yeah.
So, of course, everybody wants it. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're best suited for it. Like, that's the best soil for them, if that makes sense. What do you do with someone like that, where it, you're like, hey,
Well,
I know you want this,
Yeah.
but probably not the best fit for you, actually. Like, this isn't the best for your growth.
So I just came up with a new treat people how they need to be treated, right? Because as a leader, we have to recognize our team, and we need to deal with them in a case by case. The worst thing that you could do is have one person, 2 people on a team of 20 that aren't performing well outside in a remote setting and saying, okay, everybody's got to come back to the office. That would be the worst thing you can do. You're going to have a revolt on your hands if you do that. So you need to treat people how they need to be treated.
That's
that individual, case by case. Don't be afraid to have the tough conversation and to say, maybe we can work towards getting you back to remote, but we need you in the office right now.
Right.
This when you, because here are the 2 options. We need you in the office, or we don't need you.
Right.
Because that's kind of where we've gotten to in our dynamic. We feel like you're not, and I just had a client talk to me about this the other day. They're bringing some individuals back into the office because they feel like a 40-hour work week is turned into a 30-hour work week for an individual, right? And just gotten a little too comfortable with that remote environment and doesn't know how to get it back on track on their own. And so we have to come, we're not going to fire this person, we're not going to let them go, but we're going to help them get
back on track.
Absolutely. And so you
silent
as a leader
quitting
have to do
is
that.
part of the thing that we're seeing right now, and that's why I'm having this discussion, is because we are seeing this challenge where when the pandemic first happened, everybody was forced into it. They actually found that production for a lot of places went through the roof. People
I'm
were
not driving.
They were work,
and they're afraid. People were afraid. I don't want to lose my job.
That's true. So they're putting in over there. They're putting in extra, and so they're grinding it out. And then it became Groundhog's Day. Every day's the same. Like, there's no separation of home and work, and so this whole work-life balance actually is almost
out
the
the
opposite.
window.
It's Groundhog's Day. It's the same. So people were
I wear the same sweatpants every day.
They get burnt out. Burnout became the top. Like, that's the everybody talking about burnout. How to avoid burnout. How to avoid burnout. Why are we talking about that? Well, because people were burning out, and so, and then companies are starting to go, we want you to come back.
Yeah.
And that's where this big
revolt.
Oh yeah, people are like freaking out. Like, no, I don't want to come back.
Yeah.
So it's
I haven't had to pay for childcare for this long, because I can go pick up my kid and I can come back and log back in, and all that kind of stuff going on. Absolutely.
So as like a leadership, I'm thinking like that's tough conversations to have, and I think to your point, it's an individual case by case. Like, hey, this position is a hybrid position, right? It's hybrid. That doesn't mean that everybody gets, right?
100%.
Depending on this interview and how it goes, and depending on how, and I almost feel like it should almost be like a privilege earned. Like, you need to be able to show that you can function here in this capacity. And anyway, I just think it's a conversation too with each individual.
I think, and I really love the individualistic approach. It has to be done that way. You can't treat everyone the same and expect the same responses. However, the tough conversations, I think as leaders, we have to get to a point where we relish that. We have to get to a point to realize this is a teachable moment. It doesn't have to be ugly. It doesn't have to be hard. Again, your mindset towards the person who we're talking about is, I have an opportunity here to teach or grow this individual. And you just have a prepared monologue to speak with this person about and have solutions beforehand. But what that really, again, the way you come at this person, the methodology and the mindset you use shows that person, well, he really does care.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it just has to be a caring approach.
Sure.
And
it has to be about them and not about you and the company, blah, blah, blah. It's got to be like, hey, listen, we're noticing, like, it's not only just a production, but like your attitude has changed, your excitement, your energy has changed. Like, you're a different person working from home.
Yeah.
And this isn't the person we hired.
Yeah.
And like, can we get back to that person, or can we shift it a little bit, or what do we need to do?
I think the best way I've found to share that specific conversation is, we know this is you. Like you're up here.
This is your potential.
This is how you're performing right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And we know you're this. Yeah. We need you to be up here.
Absolutely.
How do we get there?
How do we get back to
How do
that
we close
excellence?
that gap? Because we know you can do. And yeah, it's got to be restorative. Those conversations have to be restorative. They have to be empowering. They have to be hopeful. And
what do you do when they get offended?
Well, I mean, people are just going to get offended in life, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
if
I feel
you
like
don't
that's
want
what's
to,
happening. We're in a society that's very entitled and very people are easily offended and triggered.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Yeah, red flag.
well, and here, you know, you mentioned the word recession.
yep.
And what was it? Just yesterday, Bloomberg said 100% chance of recession next
Oh,
year. 100%. Which when do they? Is there 100% consensus on anything?
Yeah.
But really, recessions and times like that in a marketplace are resets.
Yes.
And if
Mic
you
drop.
think about it, we've gone through the longest period without a recession. We're at 14 years now since the 2008 recession.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, prior to that, every 8 to 10 years, we've had a recession. Some are longer than and bigger than others. But you think 14 years, if you're not 35, 36 years old, you probably didn't feel or experience the 2008 recession where people had 10% of their overall pay cut off if they weren't let go, right? And you feel that, and that changes your mindset about the dynamic between you and your employer. And I'm all about I think the Great Resignation was a reset in ways where it's like employee empowerment, right? And I need to be able to say some of the things I need to say, but anything can get out of balance.
Correct.
And there needs to be a reset where we go, there has to be a mutually beneficial relationship here. There's not employer the enemy and employee enemy, and we're in this confrontational relationship. I had a person that wanted to ask for a raise, and in a coaching session I said, why don't you just go ahead and we'll role play this thing, go ahead and it was smiles, and then it was like, I deserve a raise. It immediately went down like that, and I was like, okay, time out. I know your boss, and you don't have to do that. You know, like,
that's awesome.
And I said, let's reset and
Good thing you role
say,
played.
I think I've earned the opportunity, whatever. Wow. But when we're approaching things from a confrontational enemy, your corner, my corner mindset, we're going about it all wrong.
Right.
And so a recession could be a reset on that, on everybody to say, hey, how can we figure this out so the organization can do well and we can keep as many team members, employees going? And for some organizations that happened during the pandemic, and for others it just didn't. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. We're headed into a reset. Okay, another reset. We've been having just a lot of resets going on, but we're gonna get some balance.
Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right. You know, employee demands are up here, and I'm in favor of a lot of that. Like, it gave the employee a voice, which they didn't have for the longest time, and so now they, but it's the pendulum always swings back the other direction, and that's where, people need to just be cautious of what they're doing and saying right now as we head into a recession. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Okay, tell me about your career journey. What were you doing before executive leadership and becoming a coach, and what were you doing before that?
I was a pastor.
Whoa, I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did that for many years. I grew up in a pastor's home. My dad was a pastor, has been a pastor for over 40 years. And was going down that path when I was a very young age, was in bed, woke up, had a dream, vision, whatever you want to call it. I was about 5 years old, and I saw myself standing on a stage speaking. And I ran into my parents' room, and I said, hey, I think I'm supposed to be a pastor. And I didn't ever think about it again, or how to interpret that dream ever again. It was just, that's the road. All the speakers that I knew in my life, they were pastors. Anybody who stood on stage and spoke, they were a preacher. And so I went down that road, and for a long time, 15 years, was going down that road and enjoyed it. And then one day, God put in my heart this, I had found favor. I started a church in Santa Barbara, California. And I started by going to the chambers of commerce and meeting the business people. And I'd have bank presidents come up to me and, kind of whisper, hey, I'd send out a weekly email. I really like your email. I said, great. You'll really like coming to a service then. And they said, I don't do that. And so I realized I had this opportunity. I had this influence with people outside of the church context. And so anyways, through the process of time was kind of entertaining that, and felt prompted that was really the direction I was supposed to go with my career. And there's these people called speakers and trainers that they stand on stages and they help people as well. But they do it in the business setting instead of in churches. And so, yeah, that's what I was doing beforehand. So a lot of, meeting people at their greatest times and at their worst times, and being a confidant to people through that.
So you're kind of like the Trojan horse. You get to come in there like you just hit us with it right now.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were a pastor. That's amazing.
Yeah, but the way you spoke earlier, I said, okay, this is a church guy here.
He knows something. He knows something.
A little something. Yeah.
Okay. Not
so,
surprised.
And that's how I like to, for my clients that want that, I'm that.
Yeah.
I can be to them what they want me to be for them. And there's some people that's not of interest to them, and that's not anything that they're interested at this time in their life, and that's okay. I don't have to. The coaching session is about the client. It's not about me.
Right.
So that's kind of where I draw the line there. But once again, just like John Maxwell, Zig Ziglar, those folks, influences in my life as well, they have a foundation in Scripture through the principles that they're teaching, and the ways that they're handling conflict are based out of Scripture. And so
you did that 15 years, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
What do you feel like is the most important characteristic of a great leader, like a Zig Ziglar or somebody like that? What do you feel is that it factor, that characteristic that they all really have in common?
Oh, that all of them have in common. So that's an interesting wrinkle on it when you say that they all have in common.
Well, what were you thinking?
The first thing that came to mind, I think the characteristic of great leaders is empathy. And really the modern leader, I would say the modern leader is a person that can sit in the shoes of the person across from them and kind of feel what they feel. Mm-hmm. That's what the next generation is looking for in a leader. Mm-hmm. And so we do, as leaders, have to have our finger on the pulse of what is resonating with the culture, and be able to attract and influence and gain earn the ear of the people out there. And part of that, I believe, comes through that empathy. That's where you're going to see more success. At the end of the day, though, people want to follow, like if you just look at research, people want to follow someone that has a vision. The number one thing that people are looking for, this was done through the Leadership Challenge, with a coworker, they're looking for honesty, trust, someone I can trust. Oh. And that's across the board. That's the number one thing they're looking for in a leader and in a coworker. But where it diverges from there is in the idea of a leader, they want vision. They want someone who has eyes to the future. So that's what people are looking for in surveys over the last 20 years, based on the Leadership Challenge. So that's what I would say every leader has, like just based on what people are looking for over time. What I think everybody needs to grow in and put a focus in on is that empathy and caring about their team.
That's a great answer. Oh my gosh. So you're right.
I would say what parallels empathy is integrity also.
Integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two characteristics right there. It's a winning combination, no doubt.
Absolutely. I like what you were saying about vision. Most great leaders are visionaries, right? You look at the Steve Jobs and the Elon Musk. I mean, there's visionaries. Like, they have this idea that's so out of this world that you're like, what? You know what I mean? But they get people bought onto it. Like, they're able to they're able to cast their vision.
Well,
and get people to really buy into it.
Yeah, and that's the one skill. So if you're in between jobs right now, I think a skill that you could work on is communication, and that the ability to cast that vision, but also to sell people on you, right? And what you bring to the table and how you can add value to an organization. Healthy communication period, I believe, is the foundation of all soft skills. You were in sales, right?
I think it's everything.
It's the key. I mean, Warren Buffett said you increase your net worth by 50% if you learn communication skills.
Listen, God said, "Let there be light." Okay, He said it. Audible. right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Communication is everything.
Yes.
Right? And before the written word, there was the spoken word. And, and it's just, communication is, and without communication, trust breaks down.
Yep.
And when trust breaks down,
insecurities rise up.
the relationship breaks down. I mean, the whole foundation of it breaks down.
Because you don't know where someone's at.
Yeah.
If we don't have regular communication, I don't know where we're at. If I don't regularly communicate and update my team on where we're trying to go, then I haven't clarified the priority of the organization.
Right. Yep.
And they might be operating on last month's priority. Well, we know that things change so fast. Markets change. I work with some mortgage folks. I did their strategic planning at the beginning of the year. How many of you know the strategic plan in the mortgage industry is very different at 3% interest rates than it is at almost 7% interest rates, right?
Yeah,
That's a different world. And you have to change and modify your plan the whole way. And then you have to get that message out to the people on the team.
I got a buddy, when you said that, he's in the mortgage industry. And he's like, yeah, my business is hurting right now.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, I mean, half of my business was refis. Like, he's like, there's no refis.
No.
Like, there's no refi.
Unless you bought under Carter's administration. There's a refi.
He's like, well, there's no refi going on right now. Like, and I'm like, I didn't even think about that. That's something that just never hit my brains until he said it. And I was like, wow, you're absolutely right. That's crazy. But wow. So I love that. Okay. You also have a book.
Yeah.
The Executive Leader's Handbook.
Yes.
Right? Talk to me about what readers can expect to learn in this book.
Yeah, so it is exactly like it sounds, a handbook. So if you have a car, right, in the glove compartment there, it's got a handbook. If you need to change a light, up in the table of contents, you see the problem that you're having, you look at the chapter, and it explains to you. So that's how my book is set up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like
so it's
that.
really
That's great.
It's
man.
not the type of book that you read cover to cover. It's one that you keep nearby when you have a problem. You run into a communication challenge. There's really three sections. It's communication, organizational leadership, and then mindset. And so if you have a challenge in one of those areas, you look up the table of contents. Hopefully you see something that resonates with you that may answer your problem. You go and you read the short 3 to 5 page chapter, and you put it into practice. I think so much. I know how I learned leadership was, I say I was just kind of dumb enough, but I was just dumb enough where I'd read a chapter and then I just immediately put it into practice. Right? They'd say, John Maxwell would say, have the meeting before the meeting. And I'd go, that sounds kind of smart. Let me try that out. You know, hey, here's what I'm going to talk about in our meeting. What do you think? Oh, that's what you hear me saying? Okay, I need to work on this some more. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And work on it, right? And tweak it and get my message right. And so that's how I wrote the book is very simply, you have a problem. And these are all the answers. I kind of had some rules for myself. I wanted them to be things that I use. I have used myself, and then I use with my clients currently. So they're practiced, they're tried, they're true. It's not a theory that I have. And I think there's a place for thought leadership, right? For us to speculate, hey, what might work in the future? Let's think into these things and try it out. But this book is very practical in its approach, where I want it to be items that have worked for me, but also other people have been able to take them. So they're portable, and they've been able to use them in their environment and find success.
So these are like tried and true principles that are actually tested, time tested. These things work. So like you said, the thought leadership is like, hey, I got ideas what I think woulda, coulda, shoulda work.
Yeah.
You never know if it's really going to crack off.
Why don't you try it out with your team, right? And tell me if it works or not.
Yeah. But this is more time-tested principles.
Yeah, stuff that I've used, that I've learned in my experience, I've practiced in my leadership, and then I've also my clients. Because sometimes, right, in coaching, you want to ask questions and get the person to come to their own conclusions. But sometimes people don't have the competencies, the leadership experience, and they go, how do I handle conflict? Just tell me, how do I handle this conflict, right? And you walk them through what their options are.
How do you handle conflict? That's a good
That's
setup.
a great question, right? I have a chapter on that. But really, there's 3 healthy ways, and I say healthy ways because there's a lot of different ways that you can handle conflict, but there's 3 healthy ways, and the first way is you can address it with the person that you have the conflict with. So address it with them. Lots of times we like to talk to everybody else except the person.
Do you think, that's what I was going to ask you, do you think people are actually addressing
No, I think they're talking to other people, or they're telling someone else to go address it. Hey, let me tell on them, because you need to go tell them. And then that brings all kinds of problems. If you've ever done that before, I've actually done that before. Once again, I've been that dumb, right? Where a person said, hey, this person has this conflict with you, and you need to go talk to them. And then you go and talk to that person, and they go, They'll just lie to your face. I don't care if you work in a church, they'll lie to your face, right? People avoid conflict like the plague.
Right.
And so you never want to be a messenger for someone else. You want to encourage your team. If you're a leader in an organization, okay, as long as it's not abusive. We're not talking abusive stuff. We're talking regular difference of opinions. I didn't like how they said that to me. I asked them to fix this. They're not fixing it. Okay, address the problem, right? So you can address it, have the conversation with them. You can get over it. Sometimes you just go water off a duck's back. I'm just going to get over this. I asked them to do it this way. They didn't do it. Let's move on with life. It's not worth getting hung up on. I don't see it being a pattern. It's just a one-off. Or you can leave. You just leave the organization. And you can say, this rises to that point where maybe I've already addressed, and this is what I would tell you, address it or try getting over it first before you leave. Don't just immediately, because it's unhealthy for your maturity if you always try to run every time.
Resentment starts to build up, right? If you stay, and you're saying if you're leaving, if you're jumping ship.
If you're jumping ship every time there's a conflict, you're not growing yourself to learn how to have healthy conflict. And that's just going to go with you with every relationship. It's going to go with your kids. I can't tell them anything because then they won't love me, right? Or my spouse or whatever. And so that can become passive aggressive activity and all that kind of stuff. So it's best if you've tried to address it and it's just not getting fixed. Okay, consider moving on as an option. And I'm not talking illegal, immoral, or unethical, right? Those types of items you probably want to consider moving on and removing yourself from that situation. But those are the 3 healthy ways to deal with conflict in an organization.
Yeah, there's a time when sometimes, you know what, you just gotta go.
Yeah.
But there's also, to your point, if you're a hopper and you're hopping from place to place to place, the problem's probably with you.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, who's the real problem? You got to look inside. And I'll give you an example. So when I was in the auto industry, and I was in my mid-20s, crushing it, top producer every year, and I wanted to move up. I wanted to go into management. The GM there was not having it. Like, he just wasn't, and I wasn't brown nosing like some of the other managers were, and There was some politics going on, and I'm just not. I need to learn that, actually. It's something I still work on, is corporate politics. I'm not good with it. But anyway, so I'm not good with the corporate politics. The GM didn't like me, but I was like the star there. I was showing out, and I'm like, with this guy in power, I am never going to. Right. And I remember having conversations with him and saying, hey, I want this. Like, this is what that's what I want. And it just wasn't going to happen with him there. And he wanted me to dance like a puppet. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, I had to make that decision. Like, if this guy is in power, I'm not going to move up. Never going to happen. So it's time for me to move out. I've just outgrown my environment. So I totally understand what you're saying. Like, you have to make that deciding factor for yourself.
Yeah.
Is it enough is enough? Or is this something you can get over? Can you forgive?
And that's a lot of it too. Sometimes people leave because of, I feel like you never want to put the leadership in your organization, you don't want to give them ultimatums. I don't think that's a healthy dynamic. I don't do that with my wife, right? I don't say, hey, if you don't do this, then, right?
That's smart.
You know better.
Yeah, you don't start out that way, right? And so the same thing is true. Like, if you can't, especially, I work in small businesses primarily, when you're talking to the owner of a company, you can't say, hey, if you promote this person, if you move this person into leadership, if you make this move in your business, I'm out the door. You're probably going to get I can't have you manipulate me in that way. Can we talk about how What is an option for us to restore this relationship? How can we try to work towards a healthy balance in this organization and move things around? And so that is, I always try to encourage people towards that. But at the end of the day, people have to make their decisions. And with that, I always encourage people, don't leave something, go to something. So really, you were talking about your vision for your life and what you have.
I'm gonna give you my
where you feel that you're gifted to go and all the components of that. Well, you need to consider that and then make a move towards that.
Yes.
And that move might not be up. It might be lateral or down because now you're starting something new. You're starting a new direction. It might be a new industry, but
that was me.
Yeah.
I moved out and I said, I'm leaving the auto, right? But I made a plan first. I didn't just go, peace, I'm out.
Yeah. Out of frustration or anger or whatever.
No, you can't do that. Like, I made a plan first and started studying and started getting my securities licenses and all of that. And I moved into financial services.
Yeah.
And I made sure, like, I had some place to go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then I remember before I left, this is the funny part. So before I left, there was a promotion that was coming up. And these didn't come up all the time. This was like every 3 years, 4 years, maybe something would pop up that this opportunity would come up. So here it is again. And I'm like, dang, I'd already kind of made the decision I was going to go. I'd already been planning on studying. I'd already started studying and all of that. But here's this opportunity in my face again. I'm like, okay. So I went to the GM and I said, hey, a few years ago we talked about this opportunity. It's up again. Like, here it is. I just want to know what your thoughts are on that. I didn't even tell him I wanted it, didn't want it. I just said, I just want to know what your thoughts are. And he said, well, that's the great news. I have 90 days to decide. And when he said that, he's looking at me. He's basically saying, I want you to dance for 90 days. Like, that's what I'm hearing. And I looked at him and I said, well, I appreciate that. If you don't know after 6 years, you won't know after 90 days. So I appreciate you. And, and I put in my 2 weeks notice right there.
Wow.
I was like, thank you. That was everything I needed to hear.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's the good news. I got 90 days. I'm like, dude, 6 years.
Yeah.
90 days. What are you talking about? Anyway, so, but yeah, there's just a funny story that reminded me of.
Yeah. Yeah. So you put together your plan. I think that's great.
I put the plan together.
And knowing your skill sets, right? And obviously you're doing fantastic in that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And knowing where your skills lie and what can be good for you and is a good move for you and for your future. I think that's the thing to do. And at the end of the day, people have to make their own decisions and know that nobody else forced them into it, right? Because nobody ever wants to feel that way. I don't want to make someone feel like Drew pressured me into doing something like that, because then I'm kind of on the hook for if it works or not.
And what I'm hearing you saying is, well, first of all, there's always going to be conflicts, whether you're here or the next place you go to. But we don't avoid the conflicts. We learn to gauge the conflicts, but we make applicable every effort to exhaust our means to restore. And if that doesn't work out, then you have to make that decision whether to move forward or not.
Yeah.
But wherever you go, there's still going to be some type of conflict that you're going to deal with to some degree.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to effectively deal with that.
When
it's just a part of life. Like you said, not just at the office, but at home.
Yeah.
In relationships also. Yeah.
So here's the funny part about that story. So fast forward, I get into the financial services realm, start doing well. Well, actually, my first year was a really, really struggle, okay? So if I'm being real about it. And then that GM got fired. There was some stuff going on behind the scenes. There was fire, okay? Where there's smoke, there's fire. There was some fire going on. Anyway, he gets fired. But I took it as an opportunity. I was like, you know what? I was already in this job networking stuff. I was doing all this job